to the people. No justice. No justice. No justice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the revolution.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution...
You all have come back to Areopagus and welcome back to the Bereantalk show. My name is Christian Mosley and I am your host. And today, I always have a treat for you all. I always do. And today I have a very special treat. But before we get started, I'd like to first and foremost give a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, Mr. Vic Frost and D Freeze Productions has done it again. And we are back in the studio for another great conversation. We would also like to give a special thank you to today's sponsor for the episode, Mr. Tony Brown. And we will have a brief message from our sponsor a little bit later in the episode. But without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's guest. He is the owner of Pappas Construction. He is also the owner of Pappas Commercial Real Estate. And if you are from the Ville, if you're really from the 2-6, you heard of this place called Baldino's. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I do have the one and only candidate for District 6, Mr. Peter Pappas, ladies and gentlemen.
Christian, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, sir?
Doing well, doing well.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank you just so much for coming on to the show. How are you doing today? How's everything been going with the campaign and all of that?
They don't call it running for nothing. And day's been going well, a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
You know, you get up and so I was saying before we started taping, you know, my parents living with me now. They had a fire in their home, so they're living.
Okay.
So my mornings normally start with coffee and a briefing on the day.
Right.
What am I going to do? My father and his nice thick Greek accent, what you doing today? You know, and and if I don't look at my calendar, I'm not going to remember because I've been going to every event, every opportunity I have to go speak to somebody, I'm jumping in there.
Okay.
And so I'm really enjoying getting to know my neighbors and people in my community. And other meetings I'm taking that are more planned are things like when I go to city management and I say, look, tell me about your department. Tell me, you know, so I'm doing that homework. So that's filling my day. As well as yesterday, I woke up and the day got thrown off because our food truck for Baldino's broke down. So I got the campaign van, I met them where they were broken down, and I went and got the products I needed to get to keep my stores running.
Man.
So I can resume my other schedule of running for office.
Hey, that's intense.
So
that's intense. I did not know sandwiches could be so cumbersome and intense. Like this is, ladies and gentlemen, you are seeing what goes behind your Philly cheesesteak, your turkey sub, whatever cold cuts that you like to get.
Yes.
You're seeing all of the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to be able to bring you your delicious carbohydrates and all of your other toppings that you like to put on there.
So 24 years at that.
24 years.
Yes, 24 years. My family's been. So my family and I have been doing this for 47 years total.
Okay.
As I was growing up or as a little kid, my dad had a little short broom in the kitchen.
Right.
And I would sweep the kitchen in exchange for quarters to play those arcade classics like Pac-Man and Galaga, Jowls, all the good ones.
Okay.
But he instilled in me very early on that, not that work is so important, but work is just something you do.
Right.
It's not like there isn't really an option. You want to eat, you're going to work.
Right.
It's the way. It wasn't some discussion. He took me aside and said, "Now read these books, son." And it was, come on, let's go.
Understood.
So yeah, long time at that, but here I am.
So that's a perfect segue. You know, when we're talking about backgrounds, of course, with this being a conversation with a candidate, for District 6. So my first question for you is, what is your political background? Is this something that you were always kind of active in growing up, or even your family's history? Or is this something that you saw something going on and you decided this is how you're going to get involved?
Okay, so this is my first time running.
Okay.
My most official exposure to politics has been two things. When I was 17 years old, I had friends that were going to try to be senatorial pages. At that time, I think she was going to go for Locke Faircloth.
Oh, wow.
But it was more of a bragging thing. Like, she's like, my family knows this guy. And I'm
Right,
like,
okay.
Okay. So Congressman Charlie Rose was in office back then, District 7 of North Carolina. So being Greek, we always have family here, there, and the other way. Well, so Charlie Rose had enlisted the help of an uncle of mine. His name was Jordan, and got Uncle Jordan to go up there and run the house cafeterias. At that time,
wow.
there were 2 or 3.
Okay.
Basically, there were government contracts, and they needed somebody to, run these things, because who better to run a restaurant than a Greek guy?
Wow, okay.
So the whole family moved up there, and so I had cousins in D.C. So my friend's kind of bragging at me, so I just make a phone call. And I said, hey, Uncle Jordan. I said, is any way for me to come up there and maybe learn about politics, whatever? He says,
Right.
I got you, my boy. So that summer I ended up spending about a month on Capitol Hill. I just thought I was the you know what.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, look at me, 17 years old every day. I'm in a suit. I was able to write correspondence on behalf of the congressman.
Really? Okay.
And now that was a Democrat congressman, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. So we forget that, some affiliations, they're going to cross the lines a little bit.
Right.
But here I was, a kid up there in that like melting pot of people, the diverse backgrounds. The legislative aides were like maybe on their summer break from like law school or college.
Right.
So I was around these like older kids that they're running this office.
Wow.
So here I am. I think the biggest thing I did was I helped research the fiscal year 96 Farm Bill. Because
Wow, okay.
at that time, Charlie Rose had been kicked down from appropriations and had been kind of stuck in the Cannon Office Building 242. I don't think I'll ever forget the address. That was the room. But I wrote letters to like the Dalai Lama and Vice President Gore at the time.
Wow.
On behalf of the congressman. So that was a long time ago. My path at that time, I was going to go to college and I was going to come out and be the super lawyer that I'd read about in those John Grisham books.
Right.
I was going to fight and this and that and the other. And then I went to school and my dad says, hey, I need help. So I came home. That was 1998. I got my degree from Emory.
Okay.
I do have a 2-year degree in associates from the Oxford College of Emory.
Oh, wow.
But I
okay.
stayed long enough. I just toughed it out. I was only there for
Right.
3 semesters in a summer session, and I got all of my associate credits in. That sucked. A year and a half to do an associate's degree
Yeah, that's a
from
lot.
that school.
That
It
is
was
a
the
lot.
number 16 school in the country at the time.
Wow.
Okay, so I might know a couple, 3 things, but I did it. My dad says, hey, I need help. How could I say no? I grew up in the business. I had opened a store before I left. When I was
Right.
18, I opened the one on Ramsey, and then I went that fall.
I grew up near this, so that's crazy.
So it's, yeah, I mean, and I know I
Yeah.
got some age on you, but yeah, you were a kid.
Wow.
I mean, so I came back and I finished at Campbell at night with Fort Bragg and Pope Air Force Base with all the guys out on post. And I got my degree. But the real business education came from behind the line. So fast forward to your question, or get back to your question, politics now. So a few years ago, everybody's pissed off on Facebook. That's like the thing now. Everybody's so high tempered on Facebook, and people forget what it is to
Keyboard
be
warriors.
Yeah, well, I have coined the term keyboard cowboy. That's mine.
Oh,
You can
okay,
trademark the
okay.
other
There
one.
we go.
So these keyboard cowboys, okay, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's pissed off. And then when it comes, and a lot of it was national politic involved. And
Right.
I start looking, I'm like, the federal government really messes with me once a year. Truly. When are they in my pocket? April 15th every year.
course.
Okay. Now, do I like some other policies or stuff going on up there? Maybe not.
Right.
What can I do in my 4 walls? Because then I started looking, being in business as long as I have, the city government messes with me more often. You have your code enforcement guys,
Yep.
you have your permitting, you have your change of use stuff, you've got your zoning, your property tax. So all that really, there's at least probably 10 or 15 to 1 touch points from federal government versus city
Right.
or municipal. So a few years ago, thinking about it, and finally, about 2 years ago, I applied for city boards, like citizen board.
Right. Okay.
Okay, here we go. So on the application, you fill out your name, rank, and serial number. There, and you had to select 3 commissions. I selected planning. I selected zoning because I'm a real estate guy. My background
Right.
too. So I'm like, all right, that kind of fits.
Right.
But you had to pick 3.
Oh.
So I chose human relations because that was the only one left that had
Right.
space.
Okay.
And where do they put me? Human relations.
Wow.
So, not that I am not appreciative of being placed there, but I had no idea what I was in for. So I just
I
I
hear
am.
that a lot, too.
I'm wanting to serve, but it's like because I want to serve because the keyboard warrior, keyboard cowboy stuff. Enough. What can I do before I complain about it? Let me learn a little more about it and put my own skin in the game and see what happens.
That part.
And then I get put someplace totally unbeknownst to me. I go on their website. It's all outdated stuff. It's all, it's intimidating because they're talking about topics that I don't know, whether it's race relations or LGBTQ relations, whatever. I don't know these topics. Okay, I can't step in your shoes.
Right.
And be, I will never know that stuff. But this commission is supposed to be the one tasked with connecting different groups in the city to the city government. And we're supposed to be the work group that city council doesn't want to mess with it. And they'll hand it to us and say, here, figure this out.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm on this thing. And the first retreat we had was post 2020, May. So the market house was a big deal.
Right.
And it still is, and it's still a big topic of discussion. But the first meeting, I'm a new commissioner. I don't know anybody from Adam.
Right.
And they get to me and say, Commissioner Pappas, what do you think or whatever? And growing up here, I'm like, well, and I can't remember exact words, but it was, the market house is an old girlfriend I don't think we need to tangle with again. Let her be. Because every 10 years, it's a hot topic. Okay? Every 10 years, it's a matter of division. It's a matter of, I don't want the seal here, and we're going to spend money to just eradicate some building that it's just there. It's been there my whole life.
Right.
Good, bad, or otherwise, it's just been there. So to me, I was like, the efforts of this commission could probably be better served elsewhere because there's probably other things we need to pay attention to. And it was rephrased that I called it the old girlfriend or whatever. And
Right.
Anyway, so as we got into it, the city council had said, well, new commissioners, you're going to hold community meetings and you're going to facilitate this and you're going to do that.
Okay.
And I'm looking around like, I'm not trained for that kind of discussion. Then they were going to have a survey.
Oh.
They decided not to have the survey because it was $20,000, $20,000 or $30,000 was going to cost to have the survey, to have a scientific
survey.
to have a scientific sample.
Okay.
See, people mistake the Facebook. Oh, we're going to run a poll. That's
Not the same thing. Yeah,
exactly.
not the same
so
thing.
if you're going to do a scientific poll, that includes phone banking and I guess mailing and stuff like that to get a representative sample.
Right.
Fayetteville is 44% Caucasian, 42% African American.
Yep.
Isn't that like the most integrated place you've ever heard of? I mean, that's pretty well diverse. So how do you get a representative sample of that if you don't do it scientifically? You can't just have a change.org petition or whatever they were floating around. So anyway, so went to the thing. We're not going to do the survey. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Now you guys are going to facilitate. Okay, again, we're not trained for that. Then Department of Justice got involved. And there's like 5 guys that work for Department of Justice nationwide. There's this one little corner of DOJ. These guys do nothing but community relations. And basically, they come into communities where there's been problems like we've had, and they facilitate a conversation. They don't tell us what to do. They just come in and say, what do you want to do? And here's how we're going to have that discussion.
Okay.
So say what you want about federal government. I think they came through this time.
Okay.
I think the man's name, Mr. Lyons from DOJ, he couldn't have been more professional. He spoke well, gave us a lot of good advice. We held the 2 city spirit meetings of 80 stakeholders each. That was a representative sample of the city. And then when my commission went to give their report, city council wouldn't accept it. Wow. They claimed that there wasn't community involvement. So here we are. And I'm still serving on the commission, and we had our meeting last week, and I don't think they're going to do this, but I made a motion that we don't present to this council again until we get new blood.
Oh, okay.
Why give it to deaf ears? Nobody on council has the, you want to call it audacity or the ability to just have a little bit of candor, be straight up.
Right.
We've already decided we're not going to tear it down. It's already been signed, sealed, delivered. Can't touch it. Can't move it. Too expensive. So repurposing. Here we are.
Right.
So, but you still had citizens coming in angry to the public forums because what do you mean we can't tear it down?
They sure were.
We've already talked about it. Well, nobody told me. Well, so as I've been meeting people, one thing I've always said, the city doesn't do a good job of communicating out, but you have to be involved. You have to be somewhat curious as a citizen to go to the city's website, get on their mailing list, check the list of monthly community events, whatever they're having. You have to do at least that before you can say I wasn't told, or I wasn't engaged.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that is one thing that that's one of the things that I do with this show is trying to facilitate a space where it encourages someone to go and do their own research. Even with the other episodes that I have done on various topics, even as you were discussing, like even with the Market House, and I've talked about the history and the reality of, you know, slavery in America and Jim Crow and all these different things, but it's not so much, this is what I found, go do your own research. No, this is what I read. You can read this source and this source and this source and this source. And then if you need to cross-reference that, then you go ahead and do that. But I love the fact that that is the point of reference that you're coming from, because it kind of segues into one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you. With you being on the Human Relations Commission for the city of Fayetteville, so of course, it's not just the Market House, but you've seen a lot of things going on here in the city. And with you wanting to run, because now you're taking the position of not just wanting to be a voice on that particular body, but also you want to be in there and be somebody that can actually have some political influence, some real power to be able to affect change in the ways that you see fit, not only just for yourself and your business and even your district, but also for the rest of the city. And so my question for you would be, what are your main concerns for the city of Fayetteville, especially in District 6? And for those of you, and for the people at home that may not be from Fayetteville and may not be 100% familiar with how the districts are broken down, could you tell the people at home exactly the District 6, what would that encompass?
Okay, so District 6 starts, if you look at a map, Rayford Road, South Bingham Drive. So it goes below Bingham Drive all the way down to Lakewood, Stony Point, that area. Traymore Village, but we're on the opposite side of the grocery store. So that side of Lakewood, not Gates 4 because they're not annexed. There's a big donut hole in the middle of our district.
I've always wondered about this. Very interesting.
You know, I mean, they kind of stuck it to the man. I mean, good for them. I mean, they were able to sue the city and say, we don't need your annexation because we already have those services. And I think probably majority of Fayetteville lawyers live there anyway, so they kind of had an in. But so that's coming up King Road and Stony Point, then it comes up, it kind of circles up and goes back to the Ray Condo, Wells Place.
Okay.
I have a lot of Aaron Lakes. I have all of Aaron Hills, some of Aaron Lake.
Okay.
So the bigger, you know, the South Bunts Road and all that. So
okay.
It's a big area, big geographic area.
It is. It's a very large portion of the city. So even in those areas in just the city, so what would be your, I guess, your main concerns, like this is exactly why I needed to get involved, and, you know, or what would be, I guess, like day one, Mr. Pappas is elected, you're in the seat. What are those things that you're like, this needs to get done yesterday?
Well, one of the first things is making these folks understand as part of a team. I've said it over and over and over. You know, you can't tell another council person what to do, how to do it, when to do it.
Right.
But I can sure as hell say, you're on my team.
Yep.
Team member, let's go. Come on, why are you slow? And if I'm not being held accountable, then they're not doing their job either. So I think professionally calling some people out. For instance, when the city council didn't just accept HRC's recommendation, the report, I just wanted to ask the council people that were objecting to accepting it, it was just transparently political. Why don't you just have the stones to say, yes, thank you? Or better yet, for our director at the podium, instead of being attacked like we didn't do our job, why didn't she ask those council people, where were you? Where were you when you wanted more community involvement? But see, it's not a mean thing to ask, but excuse me, councilman or woman, I appreciate you want more community involvement.
Right.
Where were you? It's it's obviously very important to you now because we can't deliver our report because you said there wasn't community there.
Right. Yep. And I was there for that meeting. Yep.
And I actually remember, at the Cliffdale one, I think that's the first time I recently had seen King.
Yep.
Like he got up and spoke, and
sure did.
I nudged old Dino next to me, and I said, "Who's that guy?" He says, "That's King John." Oh, okay, all right. Well,
shout out to King.
Yeah. So but that to me, there was so much good ideas in that room.
Right.
We have a good community, a good, colorful, smart community of people, and here the city council has tasked us to do it, and a couple of council people just pretty much thumbed their nose at it.
Right.
And for what purpose? Just accept the work of the DOJ and let's move on. They're afraid. So my first thing when I get in there, I want to be able to accept that report. I want to move on. Is anybody else fatigued with the question? I mean, how long do you want to argue about it? Is there anything else more important that we need to get to? What about jobs? What about, name your band of brothers.
Come on now.
I mean, what
about
else?
to take up an offer because he preaching right now, man.
Look, like I said in the first human relations thing, why do we need to dance with this old girlfriend? Okay, let's find a reasonable accommodation. It will be repurposed. To my understanding, Parks and Rec has about $750,000 as a budget to repurpose it.
Okay.
Now let's do it and let's start healing.
Right.
Let's start learning. Some of the art projects and was the art. There was something that really, really impressed me with some of the ideas, but it was definitely art and education. What else should it be? I mean, the work's been done for us. All we need to do is agree to it.
I see. That's
So day one, Pappas is going to want to accept the report because I'm innately familiar with it and move on.
Okay.
And then you want to know 2 and 3?
I mean, we could definitely get back into that. But you said something very key that I wanted to ask you about when you speak about transparency, especially in the city council. That has been a common theme, not just amongst the candidates, but amongst the citizens. More and more, not even just because of the election season, but just ever since 2020 when things have gotten extremely political between not only the election, but you have, of course, the Black Lives Matter protests, you have the protests/riots at the Capitol and everything else. So things are very heated, but the biggest consensus from a lot of citizens around the nation is we don't have transparency with the people that are governing. And one of, as you all know, and if you haven't, the link for that will be in the description. Former Councilwoman Ms. Tisha Waddell dropped quite the bombshell a few months back. And in that letter, she named different people that were within the council and even stated some what could be interpreted as very egregious acts being done kind of under the people's nose. So what was your opinion on that? Just having that letter come out and seeing the resignation and everything, and even knowing that some of these people that were named could be your future, if I could put it this way, colleagues. Team members.
Yeah. Keep them accountable. So much like the great big bomb that just got dropped with the Supreme Court, that leaked memo.
God
forbid what side of that argument you're on. Thank God it's not a city issue, so I can stay out of it.
Of course.
Okay?
We'd be on fire right now.
I think context matters. So that was a work document between justices. Okay, nobody said they're going to flip a switch and take any action. They just said maybe if. I mean, do you realize how many steps have to go for something to get to the Supreme Court?
Of course.
They get, county court, superior, district, appeal, state appeal, federal.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of steps.
It is a
but
lot.
if you saw the news from the last 48 hours, it's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Now, this thing with the memo in the city, if it's founded, where's the evidence? Number one. Okay. So I don't disagree that something happened.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Because nobody is that much of a fiction writer is just going to make up
Right.
X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Okay. Do I feel like things are being handled the way I would handle them if it was my name signing the checks? No.
I got you.
Okay. Do I think that there should be some more oversight? Yes. Do I think that when you take an oath of office, are you entitled to be enriched? No. See, that's one thing. Like with my commission, I'm one of the few that's sworn in, right? We put our hand on the Bible and we raise our hand.
Okay.
Okay? That means something to me. Maybe it's a kid in the treehouse mentality for some people, but that book means something. And raising your hand and giving my oath that I'm
Right.
going to do that means a lot.
Right.
Now, you take the oath of office, uphold and defend and represent.
Right.
If anything, the people that are alleged to do whatever in that letter should be ashamed of themselves for the optics.
Wow.
In this day and age, everybody's a cameraman.
Yep.
Okay? So how are you going to act? And how do I put this? If you're in the public eye, you need to at least keep it clean. You need to put distance between yourself and friends, colleagues. It has to be all above board. First of all, I'm too pretty for jail. So I don't, yeah, this is important to me. I pledge to everyone watching that Pappas is not going to do something for a friend that's going to get him in jail. That's not me. I don't think they need their taxes done that much.
Listen, if
I don't
you
think
get
I'll
in
pull
jam,
off the Shawshank.
this is not the guy. He's not built for it.
No, I'm not built for that. But it's to me, it's kind of egregious that we've had these allegations, yet we still have the same number of actors running around. It's like, come on, man, do you really need that fee? Can't you just be arm's length and hand it to another firm or another partner in the firm? Just do you have to be so blatant about it? I mean, people already think they're getting screwed by their government every day, but do you got to smile at them and while they're watching you do it? I mean, it's egregious.
Very.
Just back up. I like our mayor. I like the people that are on council. I don't have a personal problem with them.
Right.
But guys, arm's length. Let people investigate. Let another, just like we did with giving a council of DAs that case. Isn't there a council of ethics people? I mean, surely I think Chapel Hill School of Government or Council of Government. I think
it's the Council of Government.
They kind of keep all the boards of North Carolina straight.
Right. Of course.
And let them convene a panel. Stay out of it. You can't police yourselves.
Say it again for the people in the
You
back.
cannot police yourselves.
You cannot.
But do we expect them to? I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I said, about that memo from Supreme Court.
Right.
You want your government transparent, but sometimes seeing the sausage made is not for the general public.
Right.
I need to have a good forum such as this where I can talk to you as a friend of mine, and we need to have that back and forth. If I don't like what you said, I must say, what the hell are you thinking?
Right.
Okay? But I don't need that written down and in the minutes someplace. We need the freedom as citizens that are serving the greater citizens to get the poison out. That's what I feel like a work session is for.
Okay.
You go to the work session, I'm going to yell at you, you yell at me, then we're going to shake hands, good game, then we're going to go and have the meeting, and we're going to show the public that maybe we didn't quite agree 100%, but we're moving forward. We're moving this way, not blue and red or right and wrong. It's got to go in the middle for the middle 80-90% of this community. Not everybody's going to get everything they want, but keep it moving.
Right.
So
I wholeheartedly agree. Well, see, this is exciting because we're about to get into my next favorite part of the show. But before we do that, We're going to take just a tad, tiny bit of a break for a brief word from our sponsor, Mr. Tony Brown, and we will be right back.
Food is harder and harder to come by, especially healthy foods that fuel body, mind, and soul. That's why the You, Me, and Us community garden exists, to improve the community through fresh organic produce. UMUS is here for our community, and our goal is to stop the food shortage all around us. In addition to food, UMUS also helps our local children on the autism spectrum with safe interaction with live animals. But we need your help. Please consider helping us by donating, volunteering, or getting involved in some way. We would love to have you. Remember, there is no community without unity, and there's no us without you and me. Visit us today at www.southernccinc.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my favorite part of these types of shows. I like to call this like the fire round, because this is not so much just about just rapid fire questions, but it's also kind of, as you purify gold, that's how we want to purify this conversation. We want to ask real questions about policy, and that's what we're going to do. So without any further ado, Mr. Pappas, my first question for you, you're running for office, and so there's a lot of things that a lot of the citizens who could be your future constituents are very concerned about. And so one of the first questions that I get a lot, and even one that I even have myself, is what would be your plans to help reduce crime in the city? We are seeing record-breaking numbers in this city for all types of things, especially homicides, which is it's a very disturbing trend that is beginning to rise. And even yesterday, at an event that you also attended, the rollout hosted by Chorus Community Foundation, it was an event hosted to not only help citizens meet the candidates, but also raise awareness about gun violence here in the city. So what would be your plan to either assist your colleagues with helping to deal with that, or just a plan of your own that you have to deal with that problem?
So the murders bother me. First of all, murder, you can't get any more personal of a crime than murder, okay? Now, we've been locked up the last 2 years with Corona, whatever, it weighs on mental health and a lot of other things. I can't make people be nice to each other. But what I can do is try to find the funding to improve the lot of our officers that we do have.
Okay.
Not just financially, but also offer them other types of training. There's been some talk about putting social workers with police, which I thought was completely crazy. But now, do I think that a policeman should not have a social work background? Sure, that'd be great.
Right.
But in a domestic situation, they need to be armed.
Okay.
And ready to defeat. Maybe they can have the talk after, but once we get the combatants apart.
Safety is first.
Yeah.
Safety is first.
So we pay our police as if we're the number 15 metro in the state. We are number 6. So we're not Mayberry.
Right.
We pay a police officer $41,000 a year starting from BLET training. Okay, and BLET is that course they do at Fayetteville Tech.
Right.
I think we do it through the police academy, but they can go to Holly Springs with the same, or Holly Ridge or Holly Springs. I get those guys confused, but they can go to one of those smaller towns and get $52,000 or $53,000 a year with the same experience.
Why wouldn't you?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So you want them to keep us safe, but they're struggling with paying bills. Where's their mind going to be? So it's not just about the money, though. I feel like there's been, because of Corona, because we've been depressed with social interaction, we miss these cops in the streets. Now, I'm not saying that they don't do community policing, but I feel like if the police knew the boys and girls in the neighborhood, the younger generation, and knew that, and the younger generation could better entrust those people because they're familiar faces. They're not just coming in, hey, like a guy running for office. I show up every, once in a while. That's what I get accused of, right? So if your community policeman stops by and says, hey, Jim or Janie, how are you today? Makes a relationship. If there is a murder, Jim or Janie might be more predisposed to talk to that policeman because they feel safe. They don't see them as a complete enemy. Now, you've got your bad apples. They got to go.
Of course.
But so community, finding the funding and the training that Did anybody ask the police, a regular patrolman, what kind
Right.
of training do you want?
Right.
What would help you further your career?
Of course.
And that'll engage them and keep them around longer. Or we can just keep losing them every 2 years.
Right.
Or we can have them all retire out like they're doing in the last couple of years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So making the people safe in their neighborhoods and communities, it's very, very important, but you can't depend on the citizens to have community watches.
Right.
We pay property taxes for a reason.
Of course.
Okay. I want the police to keep me safe.
Right.
Now, should I have a community watch? Absolutely.
Right.
Should I know my neighbor? Yes.
Right.
If a dude's running down the street with a knife, I'm not going to call my neighbor. Okay? And I need him there in less than 20 minutes because there's more than 2 people patrolling the district.
That's a good point.
So, okay, there's a lot of, we need to enforce smaller crimes. Just staying with this line, and I'll be done in a second. So,
Okay.
We've let go of enforcing the speeding and the petty thefts, and there's such a barrier to report any of that stuff. That's why crime's gone down. They're not reporting it. We didn't magically wave a wand and say, "Oh, look, all the nonviolent crime's down," but oh yeah, we got more murders. If one goes up, the other one's going to go up. They are they're mutually inclusive. You can't have one without the other.
Okay.
Okay, so for every murder that we've had, think about all the little things that didn't get, and I say little things, but we're talking misdemeanors or smaller nonviolent crimes. We're just not doing it. So of course the numbers look better.
Wow, that's an excellent point. That's a great segue into the next question I wanted to ask you about, which is the economics piece, because one of the things that a lot of you all know that watch regularly is something I've talked about before, but we know that there is a positive correlation or really a negative correlation between a poor economic environment and just a rise in crime. And when you speak about that, and it happens across racial and cultural lines, because when we see places that have, like you mentioned before, your police officers that are not getting the economic support that they need, now you have an opportunity for them to become crooked, for them to be able to or have to resort to illegal activity to make sure their families are fed. Just like the guy pitching on the corner that's also trying to make sure his family's fed because of the lack of economic opportunity. And so my question for you, especially you being a local business owner here, as well as somebody that's also into real estate and helping other businesses develop themselves, what would be your plan to kind of help improve the economics here in the city, especially for a lot of young people out there that are finding it that they cannot afford the city that they grew up in, which is a very disturbing trend?
The city hasn't kept up. And I'm not going to go to Google right now, but I forgot to dust off one of my textbooks from one of my real estate courses. But I'm going to leave that alone. But so in real estate, I have a designation called Certified Commercial Investment Member, CCIM. Okay, it's one of the courses. It's a full week, and it talks about economies and how basically I can help businesses find the right places to place themselves throughout the country.
Right.
Okay. So there's this thing, the terminology I'm not brushed up on lately, but there's something called an economic base multiplier. Okay. The EBM is your manufacturing job. If that job exports, sends out money, then that is going to, by its nature, create a restaurant job, a dry cleaner,
Right.
All your services,
Right,
okay?
okay.
Because that one job is a net exporter. They're sending products outside and we're getting the money back.
Right.
Okay. So we need more economic-based multiplier jobs.
Okay.
Now, years ago, we had Sanderson Farms. They wanted to come
Yeah, that
open
was a
the
while
chicken
back.
plant here.
Yep.
Remember what happened?
That was a while back.
Yeah. What happened? We romanced them. We took them on a date. They liked us. We liked them. And then you had a very small contingent of people that wouldn't have been affected. A bunch of probably people just with too much time on their hands, the guilty liberal hearts of some people, and they didn't want it for environmental reasons. When Sanderson's number one thing was environmental quality,
Okay.
so you had this. Basically, we baited them, we got
Right.
them in, and then we slapped them in the face when they went to kiss us goodnight. So we chased them off. Because that's not the kind of job we want. Well, you know what? The guy that's on the corner probably wouldn't mind that job. Who are they speaking for?
Oh, Well, that's a good point.
I mean, they have too much time on their hands. They feel guilty about God knows what, and then they chase off. That would have been a start. If you start, say they pay $15-16 an hour now. Okay, I don't know where the pay is, but if you went from where we're at to having a plant like that, it gives somebody a chance. Is it the greatest job on the planet? No, but it's something to get started. And then because these people were like, well, we don't want the chicken plant, we want Apple. Well, you haven't educated the kids around here like they need to be.
Oh,
you haven't invested in the community. Why would those people want to come here? And then you're going to, and then with my thing wanting to bring reason and accountability to city council, you got to act like you know what you're talking about. You're going to ask for outside investment to come here, and they're going to see a city council meeting. Have you watched one?
I've been in some.
You've been in some. See, you don't have any gray hair yet. You're a young guy.
Not yet.
See, is he dyeing his hair yet? But it's frustrating to watch because the purpose is to put our best foot forward.
Right.
Hey guys, citizens, we have our stuff together. So we need more of the base multiplier type jobs, which Amazon right now is the golden child for right now. There's been a lot of sideways talk that, well, they're going to bring their talent from elsewhere. I don't quite believe that. I think with Fort Bragg here that we graduate by retirement every year, or hell, every month, a great group of people that probably have the business acumen and the work ethic to take those jobs and stay in the community. So I think Amazon's a good start. There's other things we need to try to attract. There's something called NC Core. NC Core is, if you're familiar with Highway 421 and its path, they're going to make that an interstate. It's going to be an offshoot of I-85 by Greensboro or Winston area. I don't know where 85 is.
I know it's west of here. Okay.
So it's going to be made into an interstate, much like our 295, but it's going to be, I think, 685. And it's going to go all the way down to Sanford. And the state has designated these like mega sites so they can get an economic multiplier job, like an auto manufacturer, or I think there was a Vietnamese auto, or maybe they were just battery folks. Okay. But they got one. Wow. And the closest one to us will be in Lee County. Wow. So it's coming.
Okay. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's on the way. It is on the way. So you mentioned something very interesting, which is the concern that I was going to segue into my next question. When you're talking about these economic base multipliers, one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have is what happens when these people come in and then they bring their own talent. Let's say you get an Apple and they get 85% of their staff from Silicon Valley. So now you only have a certain amount of jobs open here. So what would be, I guess, something that you would want to put in place to make sure that when these companies come here, they're not only investing back into the community in terms of just building a facility there and paying property taxes, but also making sure that they hire Fayetteville and that they retain Fayetteville, especially a lot of these younger folks that are graduating from FSU and Methodist and FTCC, and we have a lot of educated talent that is now going out to Charlotte, they're going out to LA, they're going to Atlanta. So what would be one of those things that you would want to try to do, I guess, to make sure that these companies are making sure that they're investing in the people that live here?
So I can't make you love me. All right. So I can't tell these companies you must hire in Fayetteville, because frankly, what has the city done to educate and put these people in the right places? Now, you mentioned a lot of talent coming out of FSU, Fayetteville Tech, Methodist. I totally agree with you. But are we cranking out business degrees, or are we cranking out philosophy degrees? Okay. What's the quality of education and the type of education that's coming out of these schools? So we need to invest in the neighborhoods. Of course, the primary, secondary schools, that's paramount. If you get, a lot of the buzz around like the Head Start programs and things was getting the kids young, getting their lights to turn on much younger, teaching them to think instead of passing that test. Would be a big step forward. But now that's a change that I don't think one man can bring about. But common sense ain't common. But we're certainly not trying to teach them. So there's a fight for higher wages. There's all this stress and all, but
Right.
nobody's looking at what's the value you bring to me as an employer.
Okay.
Fine. Okay, you want 15 an hour? Great. I'll kiss you on both cheeks. Now, for me, how many sandwiches can you make per hour? Can you make more, or does that I'm just supposed to pay you for your shiny personality?
That is
Okay.
that's-
Everybody wants to be a YouTube star,
right.
right? But when
Was
it
that
comes
a shot
down
at
to
me?
it,
Hold
I
on.
don't, no, sir, no. But no. So is this on? No.
No, I was just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, why? I can't. Nobody can hear me anymore. But no. I mean, you gotta. People discount a hard day's work. People look down upon that a lot. Fayetteville Tech has got some great opportunity, but you know what? Not everybody needs to learn Shakespeare.
Ooh.
Now. Look, I have the benefits of an associate's degree from Emory, Oxford College, Associate of the Arts. And what did I do there? I learned plenty of church history.
Right.
I took things that I enjoyed, history, and that I always loved that.
Right.
Okay?
Right. We in the same boat.
But I was on the path to go to law school at that time.
Okay.
So getting a history degree or getting just a general business degree would have been fine. But I was planning to go to other things. Now,
Right,
if a person has limited resources and limited time, especially because they may be young, they may have started a family early, whatever, there's a lot of stress involved with that.
Right.
Use your time most efficiently. Go to Fayetteville Tech. Learn how to weld. Learn how to be a plumber.
Right.
An electrician.
The
HVAC.
trades.
Do you know how much my guy gets HVAC every time I call him?
Oh my goodness, they're making.
He gets $90 just to show up, and then another 90 per hour. And if anybody's out there that does it cheaper, give me a call. But it's just
give my man a call.
hit me up in the link. Yeah. So, these are it's hard work. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of young people would maybe appreciate the opportunity to have a trade. And they can go
absolutely
to
would.
school later and learn and listen, you can come out a couple of years, plumbing, welding, HVAC. You can go back to school and learn the business end of things. Or you can come to a guy like me. I'll sit down with you. I'll help you set up your QuickBooks. I'll help you set up your pricing. That's one thing that I really enjoy doing and I've run into a couple guys like with food trucks or other retail places around Fayetteville.
Okay.
I don't let them off the phone. I love talking to them about, well, what's your margin? What's this? What's that?
Right.
So the resources are here, but we need the young people to realize the glory is not all in the 4-year degree.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
So get started. Start valuing your time, and then you can grow.
Absolutely. That is one thing that I was taught even growing up is the fact that 4-year degree, especially when you look at the statistics of young people that go to school, they get these amazing degrees, and then they come out, they don't have a job, and they're in debt. And then when you're talking about people that look like me, the statistics are even more staggering when you're talking about, especially when you have people that are getting higher education, including graduates degrees, who are coming out with all this amazing education, no job to go to, and still owe Uncle Sam all of that money back. And so now they do have to, when they do have a degree to make 6-7 figures, they have to work for $14-15 an hour. And then of course you're talking about here in Fayetteville, you're talking about the average rent is well over $800 now.
That's right.
So we're talking about, even though we have jobs coming in, I know this is something that I hear a lot, especially from the current city council, is that, a lot of jobs came in, but are these quality jobs that you can live off of? Where you can only
they
work
were
with so
involved
much.
with bringing them in, so why didn't they ask that earlier? There you go, participation.
Right.
They want to use that political football. Well, are these good jobs? You're the one that brought them. You're the one that tasked economic development to go out there and speak to this company and do all this hush. As a realtor,
Right.
if economic development calls me and they say, I need to see your building at 123 Elm Street. I'm like, okay, well, let me have the client's name and I'll,
Right.
well, we can't tell you that. We need you to be there at 3:00, giving me orders. Well, okay. but it's always kept very confidential is my
Right.
point. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Right.
So the people that want to say, are these quality jobs? First of all, have you ever held a quality job? Number two, what do you think a quality job is? Be rewarded for nothing? And these degrees and the education, If you get a psychology degree, keep going. Get your master's, get your PhD, so you can make money and make that back. You can't stop and expect everybody to look at you and say, well, he's got a degree, so he deserves more money. What can you produce?
Right.
I like old mafia stuff. So, like the guy says, you're only as good as your last envelope. Okay. What are you bringing to the organization?
Okay.
What can you do?
That's a fact. So
I hate to break it down like that.
I like
your
that.
last envelope. Man.
No, I like that. That's real.
Yeah.
And that kind of segues into something that you had mentioned before, because when you're talking about these economic opportunities, it's one part of the issue, because a lot of people think that it's just this thing, which is, what about the economic opportunities? Where are they? But then we also have to talk about, what about the ones that do exist, but people just don't know about them? And so when you're talking about, especially the education not being up to par, in order to let students know about, this is how you can go and take advantage of these opportunities in order to build your own business, or even to get a fantastic job working for a business with a trade, when you're talking about like welding and HVAC and so on and so forth. So one of the things that I had a question for you about is, so I know that Erin Hills, that's one of the neighborhoods that is encompassed inside of your district. And we have quite a few rough neighborhoods, if we could put it that way, that suffer from education that is not up to par, which can result in them not getting the opportunities economically that they need, which also results in crime, and then on the cycle goes. And so my question for you is, especially for those types of areas, especially now that we're talking about a lot of infrastructure issues as well, especially with really bad flooding, especially like in the Cross Creek area as well. So what are your plans to help serve those underserved communities and make sure that they feel like they're being represented, and not just the wealthier constituents? Because there seems to be a pattern across the board, really nationally, but also even locally a little bit.
Well, number one, they need to vote.
Okay.
We need your votes. Okay. I have been doing voter research on like what streets I need to go and speak to, and I'm looking for registered voters, and I find a lot of what I know are rental areas. Very few people are registered to vote. So, and I have run into some pockets. Fortunately, Fable, we do have a lot of people that are, but I have seen some pockets that I'm like, come on, guys. So that's number one, is register and go vote. But secondly, when it comes to, where can we start? Stormwater.
Right.
Okay. As far as I know, and I have a meeting with Stormwater next week, so I haven't done my homework on that one yet. But from what I understand so far, we're at a $500 million bill to get all the stormwater system either upgraded or maybe built out further, so that we don't have such issues. Now, we did have those storms we had were what they call 500-year, 1,000-year storms. So that was kind of unprecedented what happened, but doesn't excuse that if you develop something down the road that you shouldn't be running the water down to her house.
Of course.
As far as the education goes, can I punt that one to the county and blame it on them, or do I need to take responsibility? No. Okay, so the education public school system here, it's county run. Right, of course, so of course. What I would endeavor to do would be to get on the county. There's a liaison committee. Okay. So the county commission and city council has liaison. That's where I can start to explore and to find ways. From what I understand, I think the schools want, is it like $750 million or something? It's a big number. It's a very big number. And that's like for building a school. Was that for E. Smith? Some of it was going to be a huge price tag, and then they wanted to build another Smith, and then but the rest of it was for repairing and upkeep of these old buildings. Which, you've grown up here. Was your school ever really new? I mean, it's.
So fun fact, I was actually a homeschool student. So I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yours was
I know people
built,
that were there though.
Okay, so it's always been a hot button to have better facility and better education. A lot of what I feel like that young people need now is financial literacy and mentorship. Now, I've already reached out to Fable Cumberland Youth Council. Okay. I was told that they don't do financial literacy, which is cool. I mean, they're pretty much focused on governmental exposure. For the kid. I mean, so it's a great program. I mean, they really do a good job. But I feel like myself and maybe half a dozen other business guys, my age, a little younger, a little older, why can't we have some outreach and talk to the, but see, am I going to be received? You see, how am I going to be perceived? Am I going to be perceived as I'm trying to recruit? Or, I mean, yeah, if they want to come work, that's cool. But, you know, what's the perception?
Right.
A guilty dude just wants to appease his conscience and go help, or I can really make some change here.
That's a good point.
I mean, I love doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
And there's no better compliment than to be called mentor by somebody.
Hey, that is quite an honor. And I've always seen, just to even understand for my own mentors that I have in my life, understanding how much honor and respect we put on a position like that in our lives. So yeah, that's incredible to be able to be that for other people, to help them learn and grow, and to be able to branch off and build whatever it is that their heart desires. And so one last question for you that's going to kind of tie in a few things that you kind of touched on earlier when we were talking about the market house, and we were talking about, you know, even the demographics here in the city. It is, you know, 44% white. We have 42% African American, or the term I like to use is ADOS, was an acronym for American Descendants of Slavery, and not so much just to focus on that part of history, but also that's the lineage. We have a lot of black people that come in from all over the world, but they are not American descendants of that experience. And so it's also the name of a grassroots movement that I'm personally a part of. And one of the things, just even here in the city, when you talk about the market house and all these different things, what I've come to understand is that politics is not just a gift, it's also an exchange. And so as you've mentioned before, that it's not just you wanting to get in there in that seat and be able to speak for everybody, but it's also, if you vote for me, this is what I can provide for you. And so for the ADOS community, especially here in Fayetteville, where not only just in certain parts of District 6, but even around the city, when you see pockets of, unfortunately, when it's mostly black people, there seems to be a trend where the economic environment, even the crime and different things, seems to be different than everywhere else, in a bad way, of course. And so what would be, I guess, your agenda to be able to work with that part of the community, being that it's such a big piece of it, being how, you know, as you mentioned before, how integrated we are? What would be your agenda for that community, or what would be your plan to help formulate an agenda?
Okay. So with the research I've been doing and meeting with people, so I met with code enforcement. That was more of an off-record type. Okay. Kind of ran into the lady and I said, hey, you know, come here. You know, let's talk, you know. Okay. But we have the mechanisms in the city government. We have the funding. We have code enforcement. We have police, EMS. We have, the county has Department of Social Services. So there's an opportunity to have the appropriate stakeholders at a table once a month. Code enforcement knows where the drug and trap houses are.
Right.
They know where they're at. Cops know where they're at. You can't really do anything as a policeman without having a warrant. But, you know, and I don't want to use government punitively, but we can focus our attention on some of these blighted areas. They don't have to feel left behind. When I talk about like affordable housing and all, I talk about living in a place that is good for your soul. Okay. When I went to Festival Park and we did the Feeding the Homeless event with Carl Pringle and his crew. Right. Okay.
Shout out to Mr. Pringle.
Yes. So I went there and I was talking to a guy that grew up in Groveview Terrace.
Yep.
Now he grew up in the 80s in Groveview Terrace.
Yeah, so I wasn't around, but I know about it.
Well, we can call it mini Beirut, you know. So it was a rough place.
Very.
And I asked him, I said, well, have you seen what we redeveloped or what the city redeveloped in Groveview Terrace's place? I don't know the name of it, and I should. But he says, man, that's nice. And I said, as a young man, what would that have done for you, coming home to that, instead of what you had to do? Right. This little old brick with the window units and run down. And, you know, and he agreed that would have done a lot for his outlook on life. We're stunting these kids' growth by not giving them clean places to live in and safe places. So we're just like, well, yeah, that's how they live. No, they want better. They want the same thing you do. Right. They want their family safe. They want to have future for their children. And if they know just a little bit about respecting their money, they're going to want to own something one day to pass to their kids as generational wealth. They deserve that.
Absolutely.
The community has struggled long enough with only being renters, always having to try to make ends meet.
Right.
It's a constant struggle just to survive instead of thriving.
Right.
We have to change that.
Absolutely. I can wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And so my last and final question, which actually I'm glad you kind of segued into that when you're talking about generational wealth, because that is one of the biggest things that I'm a huge proponent of, is to have ownership. And of course, with you being in real estate, you understand not only just the lucrative nature of owning real estate, but also what it does for like your soul and for your mind to be able to say that this is mine, and if something happens to me, this goes to my family, my children, and so on and so forth. And so one of the biggest things that I am a huge proponent of, and of course, this is on a federal level, so of course, I'm not expecting any council person.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not expecting any council person or anybody.
But this sounds expensive.
I'm definitely not expecting that. But just on a federal level, no, we're kind of seeing this conversation coming down the pipe, and it's gaining more steam, which is the conversation around reparations, and not just reparations because it boggles my mind that people aren't understanding what it's for. So everyone and their mother is talking about, I need reparations because 800 years ago my feelings got hurt because I was related to them, and that's not what we're asking for. We're saying that, as you mentioned before, we are the group that was utilized as the mules to build the richest nation in the world. And even during the Reconstruction era, the little bit of generational wealth that we built was snatched from us, whether it was by government agencies committing conspiracy or it was private citizens, and there was a blind eye turned to it. And then, of course, when you're talking about the market house, the legacy of that, I don't care so much for the building. I care about the people that building affected. And so my question for you is, and of course, again, I'm not asking you, hey, can you vote on this? But just out of an opinion, this is something I talk about a lot, is reparations in the forms of restorative justice to repair that damage that has been left for so long. Is that something that has your support, or is that something that you could get behind?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So here's the thing. My father immigrated here in 1968 from Greece. So I have no ties to the background of this country's awful lineage when it comes to that. Okay. But the Greeks were subjugated to the Turks for 400 years. Okay. Our society destroyed. Our language was almost erased. If we didn't have the monasteries and the Greek Orthodox Church to preserve what is essentially Greek culture, we would have disappeared. Okay. Much like the guy in the 300 says, well, kill everybody, all the, all the scribes and everything, and then Greece will be no more. So the thing about reparations to me, what is going to help your community? And somebody needs to have a seriously nice, ice cold look in the mirror and say, okay, you want us to give everybody 10 grand? Is that going to help? Or should we incentivize people to open businesses and give them 10 years of tax-free? Make all you want. Okay? See, so the other problem is with government, it's please, sir, may I have some more? Okay. Where does it stop? What's the boundary? And of course, where are we going to get the money? We'll get there. But I feel like if you give a starving man a bunch of bread and water, he's going to eat himself to death. So how would you offer to, in what form would you want the reparations to be in, I guess is what I'm saying. You want to give everybody a cashier's check, like cash for clunkers and go on, or are we going to do something that's going to build your community? Right. You say your community is decimated. You say your community has suffered from long time of economic and whether government turned their eye in the Jim Crow era and all this other stuff. Well, my father and my family's been here 52 years. Where am I supposed to contribute into that?
That's a good question.
I mean, just like you call it the ADOS population, I'd never heard that before. So kudos to you. But I've never heard that. Right. So what do we do? We can keep talking. Right. I like talking about it. But legitimately, how can we help your community? Absolutely. What I want to do I want to help. I want to talk to people in your community and of the younger generation,
Right.
to get them on the path. Not everybody's going to be a real estate tycoon.
Of course.
Okay, of course.
Right.
Real estate's my passion. I love it. Okay, I love my restaurants. But not everybody can be a good sandwich maker, and not everybody can be a good landlord.
Right.
So, what can we do to give them a better path?
That's an excellent question, and of course, that's not something I can answer right at the tail end of the show. But that is something, with the ADOS Foundation, or the ADOS Advocacy Foundation that I'm a part of, and the founders being Miss Yvette Carnell and Mr. Antonio Moore. They give a very thorough breakdown on what exactly reparations would look like, where it would come from, what it's used for, or is it just handing out a bunch of cashier's checks, or is it helping to rebuild structurally? Is it, also talking about tax credits like you mentioned before, so we can make sure that the damage can actually be repaired and not just sticking a Band-Aid on it and saying that we did something. So that I like that. I like the fact that you're more investigative rather than just saying, let's go ahead and do it, because you do need to have some structure about it. Every group in the United States that's ever gotten reparations didn't just come up and say, we just want money. They had a plan put in place. So with that being said, one last question for you, which is, even if all of these wonderful things being said here today, we've said a lot of great things here today, but my question for you is, and this is like my last and final question. This is actually my last and final question. What happens, or what do you do if you lose?
If I lose, I didn't wake up to lose, number one. Okay, but number two, let's say I decide to just go to sleep between now and the primary and the election. I decide to just hand this thing to somebody else, which this is going to be on tape now. I'm going to have to mark my word. But anyway, look, I'm going to continue to serve on the Human Relations Board. I have another probably 2.5 years remaining on that.
Okay.
I'll definitely reapply for the second term. And the things with me running for office that I've run into, the community watches, the events, like Mr. Pringle's thing, and the rollout with Keem.
Right.
That stuff, it means a lot to me. That's a lot of fellowship and community. Like, you want to know where your community is? It's down in Festival Park when we feed people.
Right.
When it's just people coming together of all backgrounds saying, here. So what did I do with Mr. Pringle? I told him, how can Baldinos help you? So now I'm working on trying to help him raise money. We'll have an Uncle Carl on the menu, right?
Okay.
But I'm going to continue being me.
Right.
My business is my means to help people, whether it's through real estate, where I have a small business person that I put in.
Okay.
Shout out to the Salad Box, Tanya McNeil.
Hey, shout out to the Salad Box. Shout out to them.
She asked me to help her find space. And but to me, I had a role with. I have 2 daycares about to open that I just leased to.
Right.
That I'm helping them with architects. I'm going way beyond the landlord rep duty, because I want them to be open and successful.
Absolutely.
I want my rent money too, but
of course.
I mean, but
of course,
to me, it's that's just what you're supposed to do, and I'm going to continue doing what I think is right and what I think I just should do.
Hey. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter Pappas himself. And so before we go, I would like for all of the people at home to know, where can they find more information about what the different projects and things that you're working on and events that you're attending, where they can go to support your campaign, and how they could get in touch with you for any other business endeavors as well.
Okay, so my website is pappas46.com. That's PAPPASFOR6.com. You can learn about my campaign there. My phone number, I got a campaign number, so let's see here. You all can reach me at 910-901-7377, and I will pick up, or you send me a text. And if I don't pick up, it's my assistant, Jim. Just say hi. Email is peter@pappas46.com. Sorry, I just forgot that number. I can't remember that one. But look, reach out to me. I have the Facebook, Peter Pappas for D6. I forget all these names. You really got me off guard here.
That's a busy man right there.
Yeah, so Peter Pappas for 6. We have Instagram. I'm playing with YouTube right now, but I got my first ring light.
Hey.
This setup here is professional, guys. So if you have a podcast, give this guy a call.
A whole ring light.
I got 1 ring light so far. Yeah, I thought I was doing well, but But anyway, yeah, please hit me up, and
Absolutely.
I'm happy. If there's any community event that you know about, put me in, Coach. Let me come talk to your group.
Absolutely. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if he gets 2 ring lights, it's over. But but I appreciate you all for tuning in for another episode of Berean Talk. Thank you for coming back to Areopagus to chop it up with 2 brothers that were here to talk about what to do in the community and how they're going to do it. And so I hope you all were encouraged. I hope you were challenged and inspired. And until you catch your boy on the next appearance on the interwebs, pieces and blessings. We out of here.
The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.